Hi everyone, welcome to this Google Hangout. Welcome to KEOSTER Live, and it is here on KTV on YouTube for you all to see. We're going to talk about the Terminator legacy, the Terminator franchise, if you will, in this episode. And I'm going to be talking about Terminator 1, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, Terminator 4 Salvation, and now the upcoming Terminator. So, sorry, there was a bit of an interruption there, technical difficulties. But here it is. It's a great, great franchise. It's something that I have watched over the years. The first movie, 1984 production, James Cameron directed. Only, of course, watched the repeats of that one because I couldn't get to the cinema when I wasn't born yet. But yes, great, great film, Terminator 1. Also, it starred, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger in the title role. He had some fame at that stage, but he wasn't really a massive name in Hollywood just yet. He had had a lot of success with being the Mr. Olympia a couple of times or more, maybe. And he was, of course, a former Mr. Universe, along with loads of other stuff. Had his ever famous documentary out in the late 70s called Pumping Iron, of course, and then he progressed on to a movie star. And of course, he was born in Austria, another big import for the United States, made an absolute impact. But he went on to become one of the, if you could argue, the biggest box office attraction in Hollywood history. Some of the greatest movies that, not maybe not very intelligent movies, but movies that people would, as the old saying goes, movies that put bums on seats. But yes, indeed, Arnold Schwarzenegger went on to do films such as Hercules, Hercules in New York, Cactus Jack, movies like this that really kind of brought him into the cinema scene. Of course, he's not the greatest of actors, but he has proved over the years since the Terminator movies and since other films that he has, he can do different genres. If he isn't a bad actor, but to a real hardcore movie fan, they might call him a great, brilliant actor. But what he sells is action. He sells the great, that kind of part of movies rather than the intellectual side of movies, I suppose it was. But Schwarzenegger at the helm, the main star of this particular film, Terminator 1. You had James Cameron, the guy who was a virtual unknown at that stage, but he really made his mark with these films, Terminator 1, 2. Other people in that film, Linda Hamilton, she played the woman that's kind of the focal point of the movie, Sarah Connor. Of course, also Michael Biehn is in this film. He, of course, didn't have a massive career after this, but this was a very good. If you're going to have a career that only has one or two big hits, I'd say you'd like this one to be a big hit. So yes, a great, great film, basically about the Terminator, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, going after this Sarah Connor, and he kills a lot of people who he mistakes for Sarah Connor along the way, and then they eventually track her down. This guy, Michael Biehn, is also a human sent back in time to protect Sarah Connor in the movie. And of course, the Terminator is the guy sent back in time to kill her so that her son, who she conceives with Michael Bihn's character, is not born, and that he does not lead the human resistance against the machines when the whole Judgment Day and the Rise of Machines in the future. So it's a very interesting storyline, a storyline that it's kind of is really, really, everybody loves this particular storyline in the franchise, and it has really grown to be one of the biggest franchises in film history. With Michael Biehn, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sarah Connor, James Cameron at the helm as the director, it definitely did. As originally, I believe, when it was in the cinema first, it was kind of a cult classic. It wasn't really. It became a cult classic after its release. Wasn't a really massive film when it was released, but whoa, did it become something special? And it was another, I'd say about 1991 was the second movie, 7 years after the release of the first movie, and with the T-800, which was the model of Terminator, Schwarzenegger was, of course. It was, of course, in the first movie, crushed by Sarah Connor's character at the end of the film. So she survived this Terminator coming back to kill her. So, but also killed in that movie was Michael Behan. So that was interesting. A very, very great film, that first one. But then the second one came out, which was in 1991. And starring in the second one, it was Sarah Connor again. This time she's totally different. She spent a while in a mental facility, or I should say, what's the politically correct term for that? But and a kind of an asylum, like a mental asylum or something. But she spent a penitentiary or something like that, and she spent a certain amount of time in that after the events of the first film. So she became like a fitness kind of a real killer of herself, you know, when she got taken out of the prison by her son John Connor, played by another young actor at the time who was very, very, very good, convincing in his role. Also, Schwarzenegger came back in the second film as the good guy who was reprogrammed to protect Sarah Connor in the second film, and they were tracking her down in the second film to kill her. Was the T-2000 or T-1000? But yes, you get the gist of it. I think it's the T-1000, and yes, it was, of course, played by Jason. Jason Patrick. Robert Patrick. It is Robert Patrick played the T-1000, who is an excellent actor. He really made his mark on cinema with that particular film. Of course, the liquid metal robot, an excellent character which lives on. He, of course, killed the cop and became the cop for a lot of the film. Wore that suit or wore that uniform for a lot of the film. So that's an iconic look in the history of film. The cop slash metal liquid robot, of course, played by Robert Patrick. So there is a lot of, when you look at the new film now, when you've seen clips of the new film and trailers, you can see that particular character is given new life in this new film, and that's very interesting. Robert Patrick, you can't imagine, as a fan of the older movies, I think it's hard to imagine somebody playing that particular role as good as Robert Patrick played the role. But Schwarzenegger comes back now in this new one as well, so it's going to make for a lot of very nostalgic footage, and it's also going to make for, because there is segments of the first movies and reimagined in this new movie as well. So it's really like a sequel to 1 and 2, rather than they kind of disregarded Terminator 3 and Terminator 4, I believe. So it's going to be very interesting in what happens to this. Also, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, it kind of became a bigger, more of a blockbuster, because, of course, it wasn't a cult movie really anymore. It definitely was, but it wasn't, with Terminator 1 being such a cult following and everything. People knew what to kind of expect in the second movie. It wasn't an unknown, if you like. Definitely a great film franchise had been built from Terminator 1, and there was going to spawn sequels. And amazing film, Terminator 2. I would say Terminator 2 is probably the best film of the franchise. It's easy to say. A lot of people say the same thing. For a while, I thought Terminator 1 was a better film. I've changed my tune more so the last couple of times I've watched them. I usually go through a phase every now and again of watching the Terminator movies to recall them, you know. And I really do think Terminator 2 was more kind of, a lot of the great stuff that happened in this franchise was explained thoroughly in Terminator 2. Linda Hamilton, her role, of course, Sarah Connor, became more cutting edge in that film. Also, Edward Furlong, who played the son John Connor, who's the future leader of the human resistance against the rise of the machines. And his character was played very, I always thought that he was around, well, he was around depicting a kid of around 11 or 12, 13, but I'd say that I think the actor was probably around 15 playing the character. I always thought it was a very, it wasn't very, he wasn't really, I suppose he was a young boy, like, but he was, I don't know, something about him, just, it was kind of girly or something. But I thought that character wasn't the best. He wasn't the kind of represented well enough, maybe, but it was a great character all the same. Just some thoughts there on it. But definitely, but then it was tragic what happened to him as the years went on. Then the actor that played John Connor, of course, he became a serious drug addict and stuff, and I don't know if he's ever cleaned up his act, but he hasn't had the career that he used to have anyway. But he only had a couple of, the Terminator movie was his only real big movie, but I believe he's still got it. He's got back into the film world, and he's been portraying the Crow character in some of the newer Crow films. As you know, of course, we're just going to touch on it briefly. The Crow movies originally the character with the Crow was played by Brandon Lee, of course, son of Bruce Lee, and he was shot. He was actually shot dead on set. They were making the movie, and they shot Brandon Lee dead. There was supposed to be blanks in the gun, but obviously there wasn't a blank in that gun. I don't know if that was ever looked into, if it was a crime or was it just a mistake. Probably a mistake, but who knows. There's a lot of inside jobs going on in Hollywood too, I think. But also, we know that we'll go back now to talk, or actually, a bit of trivia for you all. I always enjoy my wrestling stuff, so I'm just going to give you a bit of trivia about that. The Sting character, the black and white Sting character of the mid to late 90s, and of course he's back in WWE now, but he was actually a portrayal of the Crow character, so that's interesting for you. He, of course, brings on the same image of the Crow. Okay, moving on now with Terminator, the Terminator franchise. We're looking at the Terminator franchise here on KEOSTER Live on CKTV, right here on YouTube. The greatest thing in the world, YouTube. Lets everyone, normal people like me, who love the concept of making a show and putting it out there, love the concept of being able to do these things without having to wait to be picked up by RTE or picked up by BBC or picked up by some of the hundreds of cable of Sky channels, or that doesn't exist anymore. You can do your own stuff. Doesn't matter how good, how bad you are. You don't have to worry about, I would love to do something like that, but that's just pie in the sky. You can do anything, and the great thing about being on YouTube is you do the content on whatever you want, And as well as that, I have to say that this last couple of days have been pretty cool, because I've recently been I've been recruited by a network here on YouTube. It's the Freedom Network, and it's brilliant. I didn't expect it. I have a very modest number of subscribers, 266 subscribers, which I'm very, very proud of. And I'd like to thank every one of you out there who enjoys my stuff and has subscribed. I'd like anybody that hasn't, I'd like you to keep growing them numbers, because these things only happen if the public enjoy the stuff. If the people want to see my numbers growing, if you get over 1,000 numbers, that opens up a lot more avenues for the YouTube people, and so much can happen if you're over that 1,000 number of subscribers. Keep the subscriptions coming, folks. All you have to do is tap that button and you're a subscriber. Okay, and I've got a lot of views on the channel, and I would say that's what got their attention at the Freedom Network group. they decided this guy has likes what he does, really passionate, and might have some potential. I don't know. It's not for me to say, but really enjoy my stuff. And if you're passionate about something, that's half the battle. So let's keep this going, folks. Help me out by liking and subscribing to my content, and let's keep this thing going, folks. CKTV, YouTube. Who needs RTE, BBC, or whatever, the rest of them? You just gotta work for yourself if you want to get somewhere in the world, don't you? Okay, coming on now, we're gonna get on with stuff talking about the Terminator movies, the Terminator franchise. Of course, we know that the films, have been the greatest movies, in my opinion, like very big influences in my childhood. I grew up watching Terminator 1 and 2, wanting to become Arnold Schwarzenegger. I remember in primary school, the teacher asking me, in junior infants is what we call them. Other parts of the world you might call it something else, but the teacher asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be the Terminator. I think the teacher's jaw dropped, but also I said I wanted to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. There you go. That hasn't happened yet, but anyway. 1984, first Terminator, of course. It has the Terminator movies. Of course, Terminator 2 came out in 1991. Terminator 3 came out, it was called The Rise of the Machines. It came out in 2003. Also, Terminator 4 Salvation, which was a massive difference from the other three because Schwarzenegger only played a split-second cameo in the movie. And that one also starred the guy that done so well in the Batman franchise, Christian Bale. So, yes, indeed, Terminator 4 was a big difference. It was, of course, called Salvation. And that one actually was out in 2008, 2009, around that time. I think it was 2009. Of course, there was a television series that spawned from the Terminator franchise. And that television series was called Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. And I enjoyed the first few episodes. I didn't keep up watching the whole thing, but I enjoyed a few of the episodes. It was, when there's a big deal, right? They say about you want something to have meaning. You want something to have an attraction, right? Going back to the wrestling, because this channel, as you know, is very wrestling based. Most of my success on the channel is based around wrestling. So I'm going to go back to an analogy from wrestling, okay? Andre the Giant was a massive name whenever in the world of wrestling. He was a big, big presence. He had what you call an attraction kind of to him. Same with the likes of Giant Haystacks. Same with all the giants of wrestling, right? Because they had that attraction. They were only brought out for the big events and stuff. Hulk Hogan was the same. But I'm talking about having an attraction, right? The Terminator movies had a massive attraction because they had this Terminator, like the liquid robot Terminator. That has never really been brought into another movie ever since because of that attraction to that one film, and it made that film perfect. Now they're bringing it back to this new one only because it's related to the old films. Same thing with Schwarzenegger, the Terminator. Not many films went down that road and done this to the biggest extent. If they did, they weren't as successful because the attraction of that first massive movie is what will, get the attention. And then if it's redone, you're not going to get a lot of massive attention to that extent. But so what I'm saying is the Sarah Connor Chronicles didn't have as much attraction because, everybody, like a lot of the cast were robots, and it was kind of, okay, so he's another robot, blah, blah, blah. So that's the way it kind of went with this Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. And it wasn't my favorite show to watch. I didn't really get into it as much. Maybe if I tried to watch it again and I was in one of my mad Terminator phases, I would love it. But it just didn't work for me when I tried to watch it. So it has spawned a lot of games in the Terminator franchise. I'm just looking at a few of them here. The Terminator Rise of the Machines film came out around the time where the PS2 and the Xbox 3 or the Xbox were at peak around 2003, and it got a lot of great stuff. Terminator Dawn of Fate is one that I bought back in the day, Terminator 2002 or so. I thought that was a good movie. It was the character, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character was in it. It was kind of like a, based around the movies and that. And it was very interesting. It had its own storyline and all. So, but yeah, the Terminator movies, very, very popular. The soundtrack of the Terminator movies, the second one in particular, was epic. The score of the film, that doo-doo-doo-doo, 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 that is absolutely epic. I love that movie. I love that soundtrack. The score, they call that, which is fascinating. It's fascinating that a movie can be, like the score and the soundtrack of films can be so pivotal in them being successful or not. It's amazing. It really is. That that can determine so much of the success of a film. When you think of the likes of Goodfellas, which had a great 60s, 70s, 80s soundtrack, as the years went on in the film story, you had some of the greatest hits from them years. When you think of the Tarantino films, of course I've mentioned on numerous occasions in my shows, Tarantino actually bases his movies around his record collection and what songs he uses from his collection, and he writes the film around that, which is amazing. Also, when you think of the likes of, when you think of so many different films from over the years that have really relied on Alfred Hitchcock. Alfred Hitchcock done so many epic, creepy films, but epic films, like films that that genre wouldn't be my favorite. They freak me out, but that's a whole different story. We'll leave it for another night. But what I'm saying is, Alfred Hitchcock's movies, the likes of Psycho, for example, had that that creepy, crazy theme to it, score to it, and that was with the girl in the shower, and with the stab came along. Then the music hit full tilt boogie. You know what I mean? Unbelievable. But you look at all these franchises, and you think of all these great movies. The score and the soundtrack are absolutely pivotal to the success of a lot of them films. So yes, the Terminator score was amazing, but also the Terminator soundtrack for Terminator 2 in particular was epic to the extent where it was amazing at the time. It had "You Could Be Mine" by the legendary Guns N' Roses was one of the main soundtracks to that one, and the other big one for that film was "Bad to the Bone," of course, the George Thorogood song, which is pretty cool as well. "Bad to the Bone," and then also the song, the other one that stands out is "Hillbilly," the Hillbilly one, the Cadillac Hillbilly. I can't recall it right at the moment, but that was a good tune as well, where he walks into the bar, looks for the jacket, the motorcycle jacket, and all the bikers in the bar, and it was really, really cool with the hillbilly music in the background, kind of bluegrass. I don't know if it wasn't bluegrass; it was kind of hillbilly and hillbilly rock and roll. But anyway, indeed, great. Even theme parks. The Terminator franchise has spawned theme park rides in different places and everything. It's pretty cool. It has everything. It's such an amazing franchise. I have here until 12 o'clock, folks, making it a half-hour show. So, discussing the Terminator movies, we're going to move on now. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. And that was pretty okay. It wasn't the worst of the movies. It wasn't the best, in my opinion, but it was a very good film. I wrote up on Facebook a few months ago about the Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. I was watching it the night and that night, and with Christiana Loken playing the TX, the Terminatrix, as they were calling her. She was the female Terminator. So when you've got that amazing liquid robot, you can never better that. So what do? We make it female Terminator. Well, makes sense to me, but it didn't. I don't think it was pulled off on screen too well. I think it was very maybe too out there. Great actress, don't get me wrong. She was a great actress, and she really had that stone cold type stare about her, and really had that. Really was able to make it her own. Along with, of course, in that film as well, Kirsten Dunst played the Catherine Brewster character, who was John Connor's wife to be in the film. They just realized that when the Terminator comes back and tells them that and stuff. Of course, Schwarzenegger back as the Terminator in Terminator 3 after a lengthy absence from, I think he was out of film for about 2 years at that stage, and he came back to do Terminator. And he would, of course, go on then a couple of years later to be the governor. Of course, he became the governor of California. So that was pretty epic as well, to think that he could go from world-class bodybuilder, champion bodybuilder, to world-famous film actor, to world-famous governor of California, to top-class film actor and filmmaker once again. So an unbelievable career there from Schwarzenegger. And he was recently, of course, inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame because he participated in some wrestling events over the years too as a celebrity. So, you know, unbelievable stuff from Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he's even got the Arnold Schwarzenegger Sports Awards now as well, where he awards different sports people every year in this festival, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Sports Festival. So he's really made his name, and the Terminator franchise really made him the star that he is. Also, James Cameron didn't come on board for the Terminator 3 movie, but he was, I don't think he got involved at all with that film, but he did get involved then for the new film. But Terminator 4 Salvation, I thought was mediocre enough. Christian Bale had all the success of The Dark Knight and Batman Begins before that, and he was on a roll. You wouldn't blame him for Terminator Salvation not having the success it should have had, but you would blame the storyline and the fact they didn't include Schwarzenegger much. Of course, he was the governor at the time, so didn't have time to be in the film. Although he did play cameos in The Expendables, but that's because he's buddies with Stallone, I suppose. But indeed, Schwarzenegger did not play a big role, just a small cameo in that particular film, Terminator Salvation. Otherwise, I think the likes of Christian Bale, I think, very good actor. Now, you couldn't say much bad about Christian Bale, such great films over the years. Great actor, but I just don't know if he suited that franchise. There will be people saying to me, nah, that's wrong, Kieran, you don't know what you're saying. But, you know, a big F you to anyone that disagrees about that. I don't care. But what I'm saying is everybody's entitled to their own opinion, so I'll take back the F you. But it's interesting. It's interesting to debate these situations. By the way, folks, I'm hoping to get the Google Hangout sorted that I will be having more people. I asked a few people to be interested in coming on to the Talk Films, but I think they have to get set up with Google Plus and stuff and get on there before they can get on. I would love to have a group of people to talk films on Google Hangouts. I would love to have a group of people to talk the wrestling as well. That's in motion. I'm going to be getting a few to talk wrestling on some of these live shows. I'm hoping to do about 2 or 3 live streams a week now. Since I've been picked up by this network, I might as well do more shows live and that, you know. I've done a lot of shows live for radio before, so it shouldn't be, I wouldn't be that nervous, but I do maybe slur a bit of my words and stuff whenever I'm nervous, but I'm hoping to get into it again now for this, because it's all worth it. So easy to navigate. It's brilliant. I'm delighted with it. But I'm hoping to get a couple of people as well I've been talking to about coming on to talk about their writing, the books that they do and stuff. I have been talking to a lot of people since I got this great news, and since we've started now going more for YouTube now and stuff. And really, it is the way to be. Great to bring this to you folks, the Terminator franchise. We've been talking a bit about the Terminator franchise. Maybe closer to the time of the film coming out in a few weeks' time, I might make a recorded video where I might put in a few clips and stuff, but we'll see what happens with that. Terminator Salvation wasn't as good as the rest of them, in my opinion. Terminator 2 Judgment Day was the best ever. Genysis is out very, very soon, folks. We're running over the time here, running over the half-hour mark. I can stay on a bit longer and talk a bit more, but we'll see what happens. But Terminator Genysis definitely looks epic. Schwarzenegger comes back. People wondering, why is he grey? Why isn't he dyeing his hair to look like he used to look and stuff? But they have made it in the storyline that he can age. He has an endoskeleton body, of course, which is human flesh over human tissue over the metal robot endoskeleton. So they have said that he is able to age. That is another twist in the storyline there. But they're able to do that, you see, because if it wasn't revealed before, they can reveal it now, which is pretty cool. But it's interesting stuff. Genysis is a really cool name. I think it's a great marketing slogan for the movie, the Terminator Genysis. They're not named. I noticed they're not putting in the numeral at all now. They're not putting in the number. They're just saying Terminator Genysis. It's not referred to as Terminator 5 Genysis, which I think is probably interesting. It's probably a good thing. See, I think it's very important to look at the marketing side of it as well. I think that's very important in movies, as it is in everything, really. But yes, I think Genysis will be very, very successful. I've heard a lot of good reports about it from people who have got to watch it already. I think only good things can happen with this franchise. I would say Genysis will probably be the last one, but there's no guarantee it will be. James Cameron has said that he was a big part in the making of Genysis. They went to him for ideas, and he said what they should do with the storyline and stuff. Because, as I said earlier, it is actually more of a sequel to the second one than it is a fifth one. So it's a reboot. They're calling it a reboot because they've changed things about a bit. But that's all cool. But well, we're going to move on now. We're going to say see you later, folks. It's been the KEOSTER here for KEOSTER Live here on YouTube, right here on CKTV. And it's been brilliant bringing it to you, folks. And I'll hope to be back on maybe Wednesday, let's say Wednesday, for another installment of KEOSTER Live. I might put up a couple of other videos where I might be putting up recorded videos. In the meantime, I don't know, we'll see what happens. But I've got a few ideas for other shows coming your way. So it's been the KEOSTER for KEOSTER Live on CKTV. And hope you enjoy the build-up to Terminator and go to see Terminator Genysis. It should be cool. Should be epic. I'm looking forward to it. So, KEOSTER over. And out.